It was my 6th wedding anniversary with my husband. A stranger sent provocative intimate photos of her and Marcus. Then came a voice message. Marcus, what about your wife if you spend the night with me? A sweet voice asked playfully. Why bring her up now? You're a buzzkill. I carefully studied the woman's face in the photos, it seemed familiar. Later, I calmly sought out Marcus's idealized first love. I wanted to see who would win, the replica or the original. Today was my 6th wedding anniversary with my husband, and I had specially sent our 4-year-old son, Leo, to Grandma's house, planning a surprise for Marcus. Unexpectedly, he was the one who gave me a huge surprise first. Looking at the stranger's WhatsApp profile picture and the provocative photos sent in the chat box, the man and woman in the pictures were intimately passionate, but all I felt was a bucket of ice-cold water poured over me. 8 o'clock in the evening. I looked at the time on my phone. Over the past 2 years, the company's performance had gotten better and better, and Marcus had been coming home later and later. Sometimes, staying out all night had become common. I've always been laid back and completely devoted to my son, never worrying about what Marcus was doing outside. I just never imagined Marcus would cheat. No. Technology is so advanced now, maybe those photos are photoshopped. I clutched my phone tightly, forcing myself to calm down. With trembling fingers, I opened my contact list and immediately called Marcus. He didn't even answer, immediately hanging up and sending a text message. I'm busy with something out tonight. I won't be back. Get some rest. A string in my mind suddenly snapped. I refused to believe that my husband, who had been gentle and loving towards me for years, would cheat. Looking at the elaborate meal I had prepared, I felt utterly mocked. In the photos, Marcus held the woman, kissing her passionately, a look of pure joy radiating from his eyes. A sudden daze came over me. Marcus had never looked at me like that in all these years. He had always been steady, gentle, even a little distant, and I thought it was just his nature. Now, it seemed he simply didn't love me. No love, just perfunctory actions. My phone chimed again. I instinctively picked it up and glanced at it. It was that woman again, a voice message. Marcus, what about your wife if you spend the night with me? The sweet voice asked playfully, with faint gasps and the rustling of clothes. Why bring her up now? You're a buzzkill. Marcus's impatient voice transmitted through the phone to my ears, accompanied by a woman's soft sigh. This voice message hit me like a heavy hammer in my heart. My heart felt utterly dead. I was unsettlingly calm, using the tissue on the table to wipe away the tears on my cheeks. I picked up a fork and sat at the dining table, beginning to eat. This elaborate meal had taken so much effort, I couldn't waste it. My gaze passed over the cake, and my stomach suddenly churned. I couldn't help but rush to the toilet, dry heaving into the toilet. The large words happy written on it seemed like a joke. It was disgusting. Truly disgusting. I slumped onto the cold floor, bathed in the dim light, tears silently sliding onto the ground. I buried my face, sobbing. At that moment, my only relief was that I had sent my son to Grandma's house earlier, so he wouldn't see me fall apart. After a moment of calm, I pushed myself up against the wall, tidied up quickly, picked up the cake, and walked downstairs. Looking at the delicate cake, it still read, wishing and Marcus eternal sweetness. How ironic. I opened the trash can without hesitation and threw the cake in. The cake instantly collapsed into a mess, losing its original shape. Back home, I sat on the sofa. What should I do? Divorce? But what about my son? All these years, I've been a stay-at-home mom without a job. If we divorce, the chances of me getting custody of our son are slim. Thinking of this, I was filled with bitter regret. I couldn't help but recall years ago, before I married Marcus. Marcus and I were high school classmates. I was a local. My family's house was torn down for redevelopment when I was little, so we had money and property, and our financial situation was quite good. At that time, Marcus wasn't the successful man everyone saw him as now. He was just a poor boy from out of town, living with relatives. In high school, we were just ordinary classmates, and with the pressure of senior year, we barely spoke. It wasn't until university that we happened to attend the same university. Marcus was handsome and ambitious then, and I found myself drawn to him. With many mutual friends setting us up, we naturally started dating. When we first graduated from university, Marcus wanted to start a business, but he was just out of school, and his family wasn't well off. Where would he get the money? In the end, I went home and begged my father on my knees to invest $1 million for Marcus. When we got married and registered, considering Marcus's family situation, my family hosted the wedding banquet. My parents provided us with a house and a car, and fearing I wouldn't fare well, they kept sending me money every month. The ridiculous thing was that I used that money to subsidize Marcus. It wasn't until the year our son was born that Marcus's business began to take off. Slowly, I no longer needed to take money from my parents. Instead, Marcus gave me a fixed allowance every month, like a salary. In recent years, whenever we argued, Marcus would mockingly say, "I've been supporting you all these years. Do you know how hard it is for me to earn money outside? Can't you be more understanding?" How ridiculous. The capital for his startup came from my family. And all the money I gave him over those years, plus the car and house for our marriage, added up to at least 2 or 3 million. My parents even provided the house for Marcus to move his parents from his hometown to Riverside City. How foolish I was. Thinking of my parents, my heart ached. If they found out about this, how heartbroken they would be. My parents only have me as a child in this life. If they knew what Marcus had done, it would probably make them sick with anger. Marcus's company was premarital, and he was the legal representative. If we divorced, I probably wouldn't get any company shares. Late last year, he bought a 160 square meter spacious apartment for his parents and said he wanted to sell the house where the two elders currently lived to renovate it. That house was loaned to them by my parents. When said that, I felt uncomfortable. Why should my parents' house be sold for renovation? But was a smooth talker and said all the right things. I almost agreed then, but Sarah advised me against it, and I stood firm in not selling. Thinking about it now, Marcus has been draining my family's resources all these years, using us to establish himself in this city. I couldn't help but think of the term, an opportunistic social climber who exploited his wife's family. Marcus is an opportunistic social climber who exploited his wife's family. He's a cheating scumbag and a disgrace. I absolutely wouldn't let him get off easy. What I'd get from a divorce now would only be half of the car and house, and the company would likely have nothing to do with me. But how could I possibly accept that? After a divorce, that scumbag would still have his company, and with a company, he'd have a continuous income. Moreover, as a newly single man, he would only become more unrestrained. This would be letting him escape his troubles. That's not what I want to see. I want to see him lose everything beyond recovery. My son was still at grandma's house. I got up early to pick him up for school. "Grace, you're too lazy. Why are you picking up Leo so late? I didn't save you any breakfast. Hurry and take Leo to school." Grandma's voice was quite loud. She looked at me with barely concealed disdain in her eyes. I glanced at Grandma. Over the past few years, Marcus had provided well for her in the city, and she had grown plump and comfortable, bearing no resemblance to the simple woman I remembered her to be. Marcus brought his parents from his hometown when I was pregnant. He couldn't afford to buy them a house then, and renting here was too expensive. So asked if his parents could live in my parents' vacant house. At the time, I thought his parents were my parents, so it was perfectly reasonable, especially since he moved them in under the pretense of helping me with the baby. However, during my postpartum recovery period, Grandma claimed her work wasn't meticulous enough to assist with postpartum recovery. I had just given birth, and where would I find a postpartum nurse in time? My mother worked tirelessly to care for me and the baby for 2 months. It wasn't until Leo was a little older and easier to care for that Grandma was willing to help occasionally. Thinking about it now, all these years, I had been living under a filter of happiness. I desperately craved a happy marriage, which led me to unconsciously ignore certain things. When came home, it was already noon. He looked exhausted, walking into the house and loosening his tie. I was sitting on the sofa in the living room watching TV. It was a classic drama about a wife's betrayal that I had specifically found. It was about to reach the dramatic climax where the betrayer faces justice. I glanced at Marcus. "Honey, you must be tired after last night, right? Come sit down and watch TV. I found this classic film just for you." Marcus didn't say anything, slumping onto the sofa. He nodded, clearly utterly exhausted. The slight give of the sofa beside him was accompanied by a faint perfume scent from him. I scoffed inwardly. How could he not be tired? Spending the night with another woman, why hadn't he worked himself to death? I silently stood up, being the CLO. Essie to Marcus made me feel dirty. After a night of calm, I suddenly couldn't understand, were mistresses this brazen nowadays? Was that woman's action yesterday her own brainless provocation, or did she have some backing, or was it simply at Marcus's instruction? I carried the meal, looking at Marcus slumped on the sofa, and called him to eat. A few years ago, with my temper, I would never have remained calm for a whole night. I would have already been loudly demanding a divorce. But now, things were different. I had a son. Thinking of my son's adorable face, a wave of tenderness washed over me. Whatever's intentions were, I absolutely couldn't let my son get hurt. Regardless of the situation, I would have to proceed cautiously and pretend to play along with Marcus. While 8, I sat opposite him, holding Leo's parent-child school project that was due next week. I looked at him and casually spoke. Did you see that TV show just now? The ending was so satisfying. Truly, what goes around comes around. Marcus ate slowly, glancing at me. I'm exhausted. I don't have time to watch TV. I scoffed inwardly. I wanted to say that the ending was where the betrayer faces justice, but mentioning it too directly would be too obvious. At least, it wasn't the right time yet, so I didn't continue speaking. By the way, where were you yesterday? You didn't answer your phone either? You wouldn't understand company matters. There's no point in telling you. Marcus looked up at me, a flicker of darkness in his eyes. Hearing his cold, impatient tone, I suppressed my inner fury. Yesterday was our wedding anniversary. I specially sent Leo to Grandma's house, and you didn't come home all night. I can't even ask why. Saying this, I heavily placed the items in my hand on the table, then turned and went to the bedroom to change. I sat in the corner of the cafe, wearing elegant clothes and exquisite makeup, looking at the woman opposite me. The woman sized me up, a clear look of surprise flashing in her eyes, then she smiled. Ms. Grace, hello, my name is Chloe. The woman opposite me looked a few years younger than me, but at this age, a few years made a world of difference. I was 29 today, and my collagen was rapidly depleting, while the woman opposite was only in her early 20s, looking noticeably more radiant and vibrant than me. I don't think our relationship calls for too many formalities, I said without hesitation, practically writing the legal wife and the mistress on my face. Chloe showed no embarrassment. She smiled indifferently. To be honest, her face was a bit flat, and her smile wasn't very attractive, but for some reason, she looked somewhat familiar to me. I never expected Ms. Grace to be so beautiful. Hearing's words, I didn't feel flattered because it was as if she was saying, see, you're so beautiful, and your husband still cheated. But then again, a man like Marcus, with his top-notch qualities in all aspects, it's not surprising he'd cheat. Hearing this, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Looking at the woman opposite, a mocking smile played on my lips. What are you laughing at? Chloe looked at me, puzzled. She seemed to think I should agree with her. Honestly, if it weren't for me, if it weren't for my family's help, Marcus wouldn't have been able to get a foothold in this city. As for the top-notch qualities in all aspects Chloe mentioned, the biggest one was probably his career. Yes, a 30-year-old man, handsome and successful, would certainly be attractive. I don't understand, you clearly know about my existence, so why would you still? I didn't finish, but I thought she was a smart woman and would know what I was trying to say. So what? For men, isn't this just another life experience? Chloe adjusted her collar, revealing her fair neck. I naturally didn't miss the suggestive red marks on her. Does know you came to see me? I didn't seek her out, yet she came to me first. How ridiculous, am. Mistress brazenly seeking out the legal wife for a conversation was unheard of. Marcus doesn't know. He doesn't know I have contact with you. It's just that I think we'll be interacting frequently in the future, so I felt I should let you know. Even though I had prepared myself mentally beforehand, at this moment, I was utterly speechless by this woman opposite me. If you don't mind, I'll call you sister from now on. Don't worry, sister, your child is Marcus's child too. I'll treat him like my own son. What do you mean? Sharing a husband? I looked at the woman opposite, feeling utterly absurd. The dynasty fell over a century ago, yet someone still remembered its rules. It was sickening, like swallowing a fly. Chloe nodded, looking at me with a semblance of pity. Marcus told me that sister's family gave him a little help before, and I'm not an unreasonable person. As long as Marcus is willing, I won't force sister to leave. I barely suppressed the urge to throw my coffee at her. You truly were born 100 years too late. Chloe didn't understand what I meant. If you had been born 100 years ago, you would have been an excellent concubine. Even with Chloe's thick skin, my words left her speechless and flustered. What's so great about you? You just leveraged past kindness to make him marry you. He doesn't love you at all. Accusing me of leveraging past kindness for marriage? Marcus told you that? Although I no longer held any hope for Marcus, a chill still ran through me. My long-held hopes for love and marriage, in Marcus's words, had become an accusation of leveraging past kindness for marriage. If didn't like me, he didn't have to marry me. It's not like I couldn't find a man, there are plenty of other men in the world. It was Marcus who proposed marriage, and in the end, I was the one painted as the villain. Marcus doesn't love you at all. Either you divorce him and give up everything, or you obediently accept me. Looking at Chloe's PR. Booed and arrogant demeanor, I suddenly wanted to know what was wrong with her mind. If she forced me to give up my position, I could understand that. But she was actually forcing me to accept her. How ridiculous. If you think he loves you, then make him propose divorce to me as soon as possible. I felt that today was a complete waste of time. I originally wanted to see what kind of woman made Marcus cheat, but I never expected this situation. It wasn't this woman who made Marcus cheat, but rather that he had already had this intention. If it wasn't Chloe, it would be another woman. Of course, I would divorce him, but giving up everything was impossible. I would get what I deserved before divorcing. When I picked up my son from preschool, he, as usual, happily ran into my arms. I kissed his tender cheek, and my heart softened. It was as if all the frustration of the day dissipated the moment I saw Leo. Sweetheart, did you have fun at preschool today? Leo nodded. He looked back, then suddenly pulled my hand in one direction. Mommy, this is my new friend, Lily. I was amused. He was eager to introduce me to his new friend. I looked at Lily. She was a pretty little girl with very fair skin and big eyes. After greeting the little girl, I looked at her mother. Hello, Stella, I'm Leo's mom. The woman was beautiful, with a delicate, gentle beauty that made you feel a desire to protect her. But the more I looked, the more familiar she seemed. Stella? I looked at the woman, a little uncertain. The woman was slightly surprised. I'm Grace. I was in the class next to yours in high school. You might not remember me, but I remember you because you were so beautiful, I said with a smile. Stella was also my university classmate, but we had almost no interaction. I knew about her because she got married to a wealthy second-generation man from a neighboring city right after graduating from university. Later, many people sighed, wondering why someone with her excellent CTS would marry so early. I looked at her retreating figure, feeling curious. She had married and moved to a neighboring city, so why was she suddenly back, and with a child? Mommy, the teacher said Lily isn't feeling well, so we should all take good care of her. I made friends with Lily on my very first day. Aren't I great? Seeing's proud little expression, I couldn't help but smile. Yes, our Leo is the best. When I got home, I saw a bouquet of fiery red roses on the table. In the past, whenever Marcus and I argued, he would buy a bouquet of roses to appease me, and I would instantly stop being angry. But this time, if Marcus thought I was still that easy to appease, he was sorely mistaken. Wow, so pretty. Leo ran to the table, his eyes wide with wonder, staring at the roses. Marcus also came out of the bedroom, having changed his clothes. Daddy made Mommy angry. Can help Daddy cheer Mommy up? Marcus asked gently, looking at Leo behind me. Why did Daddy make Mommy angry? Leo peeked his head out from behind me, looking at Marcus. I interrupted their conversation, took Leo's backpack to Leo's study nook, and told him to do his homework. Then I returned to the living room. Marcus was still standing in the living room, holding the bouquet of roses. I've been working on a case these past 2 days. Yesterday, I signed the contract and stayed out with clients until dawn. I came back as soon as I finished. Wife, I know I was wrong. I promise I'll spend more time with you and Leo from now on. Please forgive me this one time. Marcus's tone was apologetic. Looking at his sincere expression, if I hadn't already known the truth of last night, I probably would have believed his lies again. I feigned petulance and snatched the flowers into my arms. Don't let there be a next time. I won't be this easy to appease again. Marcus looked at me, a flicker of disdain in his eyes. I didn't miss the emotion in his eyes. I leaned into his embrace. For my son, I would endure. But I wouldn't let Marcus off the hook. That evening, while Marcus was in the shower, I took his phone. His phone password was his birthday. I had never looked at it, not even during our passionate early days. He had never been on guard against me, but I never imagined that the first time I looked would be to gather evidence of his infidelity. I photographed all his chat records with Chloe. As I was looking, I suddenly noticed a password-protected photo album. I tapped into it. He didn't take many photos, it was mostly documents. Suddenly, I saw a graduation photo, seemingly a high school graduation photo. I raised an eyebrow. I hadn't realized Marcus was so sentimental, keeping high school photos until now. I continued to open the photos. Looking at the people in them, I frowned. This wasn't our class's graduation photo, but many of the people in the picture looked familiar. My gaze suddenly fell on a young girl. On closer inspection, was this Stella? This was the graduation photo of the class next door. Why would Marcus keep the class next door's graduation photo? In a flash, something clicked. I looked at Stella in the photo and suddenly remembered Chloe earlier today. Those two looked so similar, especially their eyes. But was more beautiful. In comparison, Chloe seemed like a cheap imitation. A ridiculous idea formed in my mind: could be in love with Stella? The sound of water in the bathroom stopped. With a complex mix of emotions, I put the phone down, returned it to its original position on the table, and crept silently into bed. Lying there that night, listening to Marcus's faint snoring, I couldn't sleep at all. Once the seed of doubt was planted, it quickly grew into a towering tree. I thought of the computer in the study. Could there be something there I didn't know about? I couldn't resist. I went to Marcus's study and opened his computer. The computer also had a password, but I easily cracked it. Looking at the desktop, I browsed through the files. I found a file labeled 15 and clicked on it. It wasn't that I was particularly clever, but the number 15 stood out like a sore thumb among the other files. After a few seconds of hesitation, I opened it. I paused, astonished. There were only a few photos, and the subject of the photos was Stella. The first one was a cropped image of her from a high school graduation photo. The last was a university graduation photo, Stella wearing a graduation gown with a bright smile. I sank weakly into the chair, looking at the photos. My gaze fell on the file name 15. What did this name mean? Had he loved Stella for 15 years? The timing certainly made sense. How ridiculous, truly ridiculous. Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. Grace, oh Grace, you're a joke. My husband had harbored feelings for another woman for 15 years, and even his affair involved someone who looked like her. What did my 10 years with Marcus amount to then? Was I merely a necessary choice, made after weighing the pros and cons? I suddenly remembered when Marcus proposed marriage to me. He had just graduated from university and had just started his business. He suddenly proposed marriage. I loved Marcus with all my heart. When I heard marriage, I happily nodded immediately. I didn't care about a bride price or anything. I felt nothing else mattered as long as we loved each other. I could give everything. At that time, Stella had just graduated and gotten married, moving to a neighboring city. Perhaps had only proposed to me out of spite after she married. And I, foolishly, knew nothing and thought I had gained the whole world. And why had she suddenly returned? Did she know Marcus had loved her for 15 years? These questions were driving me mad. I left the study and went to my son's room. Through the window, the faint moonlight shone in. I looked at my son's sleeping face and tiredly sat in the corner of the bed. Before I knew about Stella, I could force myself to lay along with Marcus, but now, I truly couldn't do it. Mommy. Woken by my phone's alarm, I looked at my son. He looked back at me, sleepy-eyed. Marcus stood in the doorway, looking at me. Why are you sleeping in our son's bedroom? I dressed my son. Leo had a restless night yesterday, so I slept by his bed to take care of him. Marcus nodded and turned to go wash up. I couldn't bear to look at Marcus, nor did I want to say a single word to him. After dropping my son off at school, I found Sarah and told her everything, bursting into tears. Sarah was furious and wanted to confront Marcus, but I hastily pulled her back, not because I was worried about Marcus. You mean him and Stella? I didn't finish, but after all these years of understanding, Sarah knew what I meant. That's impossible, Sarah shook her head, looking at me. You might not know this, but Stella and her husband have a very good relationship. She loves her husband very much. And probably doesn't even know Marcus. Hearing's words, I actually believed them. The I remembered was a good girl. Although beautiful, she had never been involved in any scandalous rumors. And my impression of Stella had always been quite good. How about I arrange for Stella to meet you two can talk properly? Sarah suggested. I knew she meant well and was worried I would dwell on it. I did want to talk to Stella, but not through Sarah. An idea formed in my mind. I told Sarah my plan. Her expression was hesitant. Will that work? She might not agree. I felt heavy-hearted, then forced a self-deprecating smile. Let's try it first. If it doesn't work, and she doesn't agree, then we'll find another way. Sarah sighed, stood up, and hugged me, comforting me. If all else fails, just trick him and send him to Africa to haul bricks. I was amused. That would be human trafficking. Who cares? He's acting inhuman. That dog. He's not even human. Hearing's angry words, my mood brightened slightly. When it was time to pick up the children, I saw Stella. A few steps away, I waved, looking at her warmly. Stella turned and saw me, curving her lips into a smile. Leo's mom. The children hadn't come out yet, so we stood together, waiting. Just call me Grace. We're quite faded, we went to the same high school and university. As if remembering something, Stella nodded and smiled. Yesterday, Lily came home and told me that Leo is her first good friend here. She's so happy. Speaking of children, I also thought of Leo, my eyes softening with warmth. Yes, Leo also told me yesterday that he really likes Lily now. Yes, our Lily has always been a little frail since she was young and never had many friends. Strictly speaking, Leo is her very first friend. Saying this, I took out my phone. Let's exchange numbers on WhatsApp. Then we can take the kids out to play together sometime. This was my purpose today. After exchanging numbers on WhatsApp, I looked at Stella out of the corner of my eye. After all these years, she had barely changed. She was still beautiful, graceful, and elegant. Unlike in the photos, she now had a certain feminine charm. No wonder she was Marcus's idealized first love for 15 years. Such a woman, even if I were a man, I probably couldn't easily forget her. Perhaps my gaze was too intense. Stella smiled shyly. Grace, why are you looking at me like that? I'm just a little emotional. We're the same age, but you're so beautiful, and you just keep getting more beautiful. I was telling the truth. Stella's beauty was striking, drawing your eye at first glance, and the more you looked, the more beautiful she became. Stella blushed a little from my compliments. It's not that exaggerated. You're a beauty yourself, don't flatter me. I smiled and shook my head. I knew I was decent looking, but compared to Stella, I couldn't compare. How about we take the kids to Adventure Park nearby after school today? You probably haven't taken Lily since you just moved back, have you? I have something to do today. How about this weekend? Stella looked a little troubled. Okay, that works too. When I got home, I heard Marcus on the balcony talking on the phone. He held the phone in one hand, resting his other arm on his hip, sounding annoyed. Can't you just be a little more obedient? I walked in just as he said that, and a realization dawned on me. The person he was talking to was, undoubtedly, Chloe. Seeing me return, he immediately hung up the phone, clearly wanting to say something. But the moment he saw Leo, he swallowed his words. I took Leo to do his homework, as usual. Once was settled, I walked out and stood in front of Marcus. Did you want to tell me something just now? Wife. Marcus called my name, sounding unsure how to begin. Does our esteemed Mr. Marcus also have moments when he can't speak? I teased, looking at Marcus, wanting to know what he was really up to. Has anyone been looking for you lately? Yes, I said, nodding with a smile. Who are you asking about? A regular person, or your mistress? No, wife, listen to me. Marcus rubbed his temples, a little frustrated. I nodded, calmly watching Marcus, amused, like watching a monkey perform, curious what kind of act he would put on. He seemed surprised that I was so calm. How could I not be calm? After crying, I didn't want to waste any more tears on this scumbag. He didn't deserve them. She came to talk to me. She said she hoped I would accept her and that she'd treat Leo like her own son. It sounded like she wanted to share a husband with me? I smiled, looking at Marcus, my eyes narrowed slightly. Marcus froze in place, as if he hadn't processed how I could say that so calmly. So what do you think? After a long pause, Marcus stared fixedly at me. What do you think? I burst out laughing, annoyed. Was contemplating having both a wife and a mistress? Do you love me? Or rather, have you ever loved me? Even though I knew such questions were foolish, I didn't help but ask him. 8 years together, 6 years married. Had ever loved Grace? He seemed stunned by my question, and he was silent for a long moment. I care about you, of course. I gave a self-deprecating laugh. Marcus wasn't even willing to lie and say he loved me. Wife, things have already happened. If you break it off with her, I'll pretend this never happened. I said this merely to test Marcus. If was willing to break it off with Chloe, I would cancel my plan and go through a normal divorce process, to give our years of marriage a dignified end. Chloe was a virgin when we got together, and she's been with me since university. What's the difference between her and me? Wasn't it my first time when I was with you? Wasn't it in university? The moment the words left my mouth, I regretted them. Why was I comparing myself to his mistress? That was too degrading. I closed my eyes tightly and took a breath. Either you break it off with her, or I break it off with you. Can you please not force me? Think about our son. Shut up. I stood up and looked at Marcus. I could tolerate other things, but I couldn't tolerate him bringing up our son. How many days have you spent with Leo over the years? Where were you when he was sick? Where were you when he missed his father? You didn't even bother to look at him when he had chickenpox this spring. Are you even fit to be his father? This spring, Leo had chickenpox and a high fever, staying in the hospital for a week. Marcus only visited once. All these years, every meal, every item, every piece of clothing, wasn't it my money that paid for it? Look at your friends, who among them has it better than you? I felt as if I'd heard the most absurd joke, staring at Marcus, and suddenly, I didn't even know this person anymore. How dare you say such a thing? How dare I not? You only gave me $1 million back then. All these years you've been at home, wasn't it my money that provided for all your expenses? Big and small? I've long paid you back. His words infuriated me, and my voice trembled. I grabbed a nearby throw pillow and hurled it at him. Enough. Stop this nonsense. If you want a divorce, you'll get nothing. The house, the money, our son, you'll have nothing. There are plenty of women out there eager to be Leo's mom, just try me if you don't believe it. Marcus no longer held his usual refined, gentle demeanor. His face twisted into a hateful sneer as he spat out his cruel words, then turned and left. The front door slammed shut. I felt all the strength drain from my body and collapsed onto the sofa. The confrontational energy I had just moments ago vanished. I hadn't intended to have a showdown so soon. I wanted to wait until I was fully prepared. But I never expected Marcus to initiate it first. Was he trying to force me into sharing a husband with that cheap stand-in, Chloe, so he could enjoy having two women at his beck and call? How could this be? That despicable couple. They deserved to go to hell. Since our confrontation, Marcus hadn't returned home. Leo was very sensible. He never asked why his father wasn't home. A knock echoed from the door. I opened it and was shocked to see Chloe. Startled, I quickly closed the door, fearing Leo might see her and it would have a negative impact. This woman actually found our house. I pulled her into the stairwell. Sister, please don't misunderstand. I just came to pick up Marcus's clothes. He's still waiting for me in the car downstairs. He doesn't seem to want to see you, so I came instead. Chloe smiled innocently, blowing on her fingernails. Are you going to help me get them, sister, or should I go get them myself? Leo's home too, isn't he? It's unexpected to meet him this way for the first time, but I suppose it's not entirely out of the question. Hearing mention my son, I instantly wanted to rip her mouth apart. You'd better not show your face in front of my son right now, or I'll tell everyone ABO. UTU. My words seemed to have some deterrent effect on Chloe. Her expression deepened. Alright, then, sister, I'll trouble you to get Marcus's clothes. I went inside and retrieved the suitcase, packing all of Marcus's clothes into it in one go. I carefully walked past Leo's bedroom, exited the door, and handed it to Chloe. When I opened the door, she was touching her lower abdomen. Seeing me come out, she immediately reached for the suitcase. Back inside, thinking about Chloe's demeanor just now, it suddenly occurred to me, was she pregnant? As I pondered this, my phone received a text message. I opened it and saw it was from Stella. I had arranged to go to Adventure Park with her last weekend, and today was Saturday. She had sent a message asking what time I would arrive. When we got there, the two children were happily playing inside. Stella and I sat aside, chatting. I heard you went to the neighboring city? Why are you suddenly back? Stella smiled at my question, a hint of bitterness in her expression. My husband died in a car accident last year, and his brother took over the company. It's just me and Lily now. Lily also got leukemia. I sold our car and house and came back to my parents, but we haven't been able to find a suitable bone marrow match for Lily, and our money is quickly running out. As she spoke, Stella's eyes welled up. As a mother myself, my heart ached for her. What had fate put this woman through? But thankfully, a bone marrow match has been found. I just need to raise the money. Stella's smile was resilient. How much does the bone marrow transplant cost? 200,000. It wasn't a small sum. Where would she raise so much money? I looked at her. I'll give you 200,000. Stella looked at me, somewhat stunned. She couldn't understand why a woman she'd only met a few times would be so kind as to lend her such a large sum. But this money could save her daughter, and a glimmer of hope ignited in her eyes. Do you know Marcus? Stella clearly didn't, shaking her head. A bitter taste filled my mouth as I continued, he's my husband, but he's been in love with you for 15 years. I watched as Stella's face showed clear shock and embarrassment. Anyone would be shocked to learn a stranger had loved them for over a decade. Stella hesitated, unsure what to say. Later, he cheated on me. The woman he cheated with looks a lot like you. I told Stella everything. I told her that if she could help me get a divorce, I would give her the money for her daughter's bone marrow transplant. She hesitated for a while, but I wasn't in a hurry because I knew that a mother's greatest concern was always her child. Sure enough, Stella agreed. I'm sorry for using you. I apologized uneasily. This whole situation felt dishonorable. There's nothing to be sorry for. You're saving my daughter, and I'm helping you get a divorce. Marcus hadn't pursued Stella before because he was insecure, but times had changed. Now, Marcus wouldn't feel insecure encountering the single Stella. With his idealized first love suddenly single after more than a decade, I was certain Marcus wouldn't let this opportunity slip away. I had Stella frequently wait in places Marcus often frequented. Sure enough, it didn't take many tries before Marcus took the bait. Marcus, through his inquiries, learned the news I had deliberately leaked. Stella's husband had died in a car accident, and she had returned here with all their assets. As for Lily's illness, I made sure that remained hidden. In his eyes, Stella was now a wealthy, widowed idealized first love. Would he ever let such an opportunity pass him by? Finally, he approached her, striking up a conversation, playing the role of a charming, gentle, and refined gentleman. Stella relayed the news to me. Under my deliberate indulgence, Marcus quickly obtained Stella's contact information. Seeing who was more beautiful and captivating than before, Marcus was overwhelmed by the joy of his dream coming true and overlooked why everything was going so smoothly. Soon, Marcus confessed his feelings. This was my cue. I arranged to meet both Marcus and Stella at the same time. Marcus arrived first, unaware that I had also invited Stella. When he saw me, he seemed confused about why I had suddenly asked to meet him. I threw the photos of him and Stella having dinner together onto the table. The moment he saw the pictures, Marcus's face instantly darkened. You're investigating me? Chloe, Stella, what other surprises do you have that I don't know about? I also invited Ms. Stella here. Let's all have a chat. Hearing his name, Marcus instantly panicked. Wife, you should go home first. It was no exaggeration to say that Stella was his dream for 15 years. Now, with great difficulty, he had the chance to be with his beloved. This was more important than anything, and he certainly couldn't let me ruin it all. According to the script, Stella arrived at the private booth at that moment. You have a wife, and yet you still try to charm me? Stella's eyes were slightly red, glistening with tears, looking utterly wronged and pitiful. She turned and walked away. Marcus tried to follow her. I advise you not to go out, I said, pouring myself a cup of tea and drinking it. What exactly do you want? Seeing his beloved's heartbroken back, Marcus was clearly on the verge of a breakdown. What do you want to do? A divorce, I said firmly. Fine. Let's divorce. So direct. Although I had anticipated it, I was still momentarily taken aback, my heart aching bitterly. The power of his idealized first love truly was immense. He could end so many years of marriage just like that. Then sign these documents. I pulled 2 copies of the divorce agreement from my bag. Marcus took them, glanced at them, and then threw them onto the table. Are you insane? The car and house are entirely my dowry, and as the at-fault party in the affair, all the money also goes to me. As for the company, I want half the equity, or you give me 3 million. I looked at Marcus, my tone unyielding, not giving an inch. Marcus sneered, threw the agreement back at me, and turned to chase Stella. I wasn't in a hurry, because everything was still under my control. A divorce was only a matter of time. At my instruction, Stella told Marcus that she had fallen in love with him during their recent time together, but she was a woman with principles and felt she couldn't possibly be a mistress. It was precisely at this time that Chloe unexpectedly became pregnant. I watched the unfolding farce like a spectator at a play. Honestly, I wanted to know which was more important to him, the mistress's child or his idealized first love who had fallen for him. But the truth was, Stella won. Marcus gave Chloe a sum of money, telling her to get an abortion and leave this place forever. Chloe refused adamantly, but Marcus, having navigated the business world for years, had his methods. In the end, Chloe had the abortion and left town with the money Marcus gave her. Marcus and I both, by unspoken agreement, kept this from Stella. Marcus, naturally, feared his beloved would discover his shameful acts. As for me, I worried she might feel guilty, as the child was innocent. After dealing with Chloe, it was my turn. Marcus and I sat on opposite sides of the table, facing each other. Your terms are too harsh. We've had so many years of feelings. I cut Marcus off. I was afraid he would sicken me. You weren't thinking about our years of feelings when you cheated. Marcus was clearly in the wrong. He took a step back. The house, the car, and the money all go to you. The company goes to me. Have some decency. The car and house were originally mine, and you're the at-fault party. I'm being very generous by not making you leave with nothing. Honestly, if I wasn't afraid Marcus would be driven to desperate measures once all the truth came out, I really would have ought him leave with nothing. I can't give you the company, that's my life's work. Then give me 3 million more. Before he could reply, I pulled out my phone. I have all the evidence of your affair. If you can't reach a settlement, then let's go to court. But I wonder if your beloved will still consider you a gentleman then. Where am I supposed to get that much money for you? Marcus gritted his teeth. That's your problem. In the end, Marcus had no choice but to sell the spacious apartment he had bought for his parents and give me the cash. I heard his parents almost went crazy when they found out. You're so ruthless. You want so much just for a divorce. Evelyn's voice was booming. She had waited years for her son to buy her a spacious apartment, only for it to be sold before she even moved in. How could she not be furious? Your son is the at-fault party. I could have made him leave with nothing. I have evidence of his affair. How about we try going to court? Hearing go to court, Evelyn visibly flinched. Ignoring her persistent nagging, I had the security guard escort her out. My son had been at my mom's house these past few days. I sat alone in the empty house, my heart heavy. On the day of the divorce, Marcus, beaming, went to find Stella, but Stella and her daughter had already left town, as I had arranged. She left only a note, telling him she couldn't ruin someone else's family and that he should live happily with me. But it was too late, we were already divorced. Later, Marcus tried to come back to me, asking to remarry. I wasn't a fool, naturally, I ignored him. To avoid his harassment, I sold all my assets and moved with my parents to the city where Stella lived. Later, I heard Marcus was arrested for tax evasion, and his company went under. What goes around comes around. Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and share it with your friends. We look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments. Feel free to share your perspectives, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exciting stories. See you next time.